Testing.
Still recovering from my dental work yesterday, but I'm going to power through and give you a fantastic, huge Thursday show today. So buckle up, hit that like button to show you like them big ones, and let's just jump into it. Starting with the mess that is this whole IShowSpeed racism controversy. So IShowSpeed, if you're not aware, because we're all in our different pockets on the internet, one of the biggest streamers in the world. He's absolutely blowing up. His live streams get like 1.5 to 3 million on the regular. You've got celebrities coming through. I think one of the most recent was Lil Nas X. One of his newest streams that's gotten the most attention being one that got around 8 million views. It's called IRL Stream at World Cup meeting Ronaldo. Speed is absolutely infatuated with Ronaldo to the point that it's a meme. But also, a clip from that live stream went absolutely viral on social media, and it's because he sees a fan there in an Argentina jersey, and this happens.
Bro, come back. Why you got on Argentina, bro? Konnichiwa? Konnichiwa? No, Chinese. Konnichiwa, Argentina. Chinese. No, konnichiwa. Fight.
Right, so the clip goes absolutely viral. People chiming in, calling Speed's behavior racist. People saying things like, I know he's still young and people make mistakes, but I'm kind of over racist jokes towards Asians being more okay because we don't get in your face about it. And how are people finding this funny? It's insane how people give racist jokes passes when it's towards Asian people. But with this, you also had many of Speed's fans defending him. Speed himself also addressing the situation very quickly in a Twitter video.
Hey guys, it's a clip going around where people saying I'm being racist to Asian guy. You know, and I just wanted to say some things, you know. I wasn't being racist to him, I promise you, you know. Seen him, I thought he was, you know, when I see, I thought he was Japanese, so I say konnichiwa. I watch a lot of anime. When I found out he was Chinese, you know, I tried to say a nickname that they call me in Chinese. I literally was just talking to a Chinese earlier today. 433. They said they love me, and I love Chinese people, so I try to say Zhong Kong. Like, it's a nickname that they call me in China. If that did come off anyway, if I did any Asian person out there, trust me, man. I'm not racist. I love Asian. I love all, man. So, I apologize if that came out that way. I love you guys, man. So, hope you.
So with that, ultimately, like other situations like this, it was just kind of left to the court of public opinion. But from there, other commentators started getting involved, and we saw the ripple effect. Right, first, you had people like XQC chiming in, saying he knows what it's like to be labeled a racist, calling it fucking lame. But the take that probably got the most attention was from a streamer by the name of Destiny.
It's the Kai Senate guy.
Cheers, Frank. How you going?
There's like this whole new legion of like
essentially on day.
And for as much as they talk about how like all white people did was scream.
Thanks for the 20 push-ups.
I feel like that's all these guys do. I don't know. I don't know if they have more content, but holy shit.
And so Kai Cenat, who if you don't know is one of the biggest streamers in the world. In fact, he won Streamer of the Year just a few days ago. This take from Destiny gets around to him and he reacts.
First of all, what you're not gonna do is not gonna act like you don't know who is who, dickhead. You obviously know who the I am and who the Speed is. So stop acting stupid. I don't know if they have more content, but let me go ahead and hate on them for what I don't know if they
I missed out working out on Monday, so I sort of need it. I haven't worked out for like maybe 5 days. That's insane for me.
And honestly, you have everyone sounding off. There's too many people to mention, so we'll just go back to XQC jumping back into the mix.
How have you been anyway, Frank? What have you been up to? How was your weekend? Did you get up to much?
We get diversity in the top shippers, and all their and all like the efforts, or whatever, are all combined to the black dudes that just yell. Look at that shit, man.
With all this going down, you have people pointing to Destiny watching Speed's apology video and then saying,
it's so funny to watch like some of the minority communities catch up to like where like the white community was for wokeness like 10 years ago. Because like he's not racist, right? I doubt he's racist, but he doesn't realize that like the jokes he's saying are kind of like not okay because they just haven't had those conversations yet, probably on that side of the earth or in those communities. Like white people have been like obsessing about these conversations for a decade. I can understand the perspective from like his point of view. Like, bro, I'm not racist. We're way past in the white world. Racism is like an advanced, like that's like a 400 level class or whatever. We've got advanced levels of racism.
So ultimately, you have this extremely fucking messy situation where, depending on where you go on social media, vastly different reactions, right? You go one place, you see takes like, hey, fuck speed for this, Destiny's right. Then you go somewhere else and people are saying, fuck Destiny, Kai Sinet's exactly right about him. And then you go somewhere else and you see people saying, hey, fuck speed and fuck Destiny. They're both being racist. Kai Sinet has a justifiable reason to be angry. He's
some sort of
catching some
event.
racist stray. So that's why with this story, I want to know your thoughts. We got that brand new Sunday show that allows us to like actually dive into the conversation that people are having, this argument, that argument. And hopefully we can have a conversation about it while people are throwing bombs at each other online. And then Brittany Griner is finally free, but so is the Merchant of Death. Right, so Griner, the WNBA star and two-time Olympic gold medalist, was arrested in a Moscow airport last February for allegedly illegally carrying a cannabis oil. But then almost immediately put on trial, convicted, and sent to a penal colony last month, where horrifyingly she was prepared to stay for the next 8 years. But now that's all come to an end after Biden announced that she is actually coming home, saying that the U.S. agreed to a prisoner swap exchanging Griner for the notorious Russian arms dealer Victor Bout, otherwise known as the Merchant of Death, who has been locked up.
Watch this movie again. It was really good.
Or if you don't know about it, he began gun running in the wake of the Soviet Union's chaotic collapse, then making a name for himself, selling weapons to rebels, terrorists, and shady governments all over the world, even inspiring the 2005 film Lord of War, in which he was played by Nicolas Cage. But now, both are free, and while it's a diplomatic win for Biden, it's also taken some of the spotlight off of Russia's war in Ukraine, where Kyiv actually made one of its most daring moves on Monday, striking 2 military bases with drones hundreds of miles deep into Russian territory. But where I'll leave this story is with the obligatory fuck Putin, and also I'd love to know your thoughts here regarding this exchange. And then, China just invented a motherfracking invisibility cloak. Don't get too excited. It doesn't literally make you invisible, but it does effectively hide you from AI-monitored security cameras, which are everywhere in China. So reportedly, this was designed by a team of 4 graduate students at Wuhan University who won the first prize at the Huawei Cup. And the thing that makes this so innovative is that it looks like a normal coat to any other human observer, right? So you don't look like a zebra among horses, but it has a specially designed camouflage pattern that blinds normal cameras during the daytime and emits unusual heat patterns at night, meaning it also confuses the infrared cameras. So when the students tested it on campus security cameras, the accuracy of pedestrian detection was reduced by 57%, which would be especially troubling for the Chinese authorities, where even you have police cameras watch people in apartment buildings, on street corners, in subways, and basically everywhere else, with 8 of the most surveilled cities in the world belonging to China. But before you say, yes, the revolution, or oh my gosh, I hope these students are going to be safe, fortunately for the CCP, these students aren't making this to help protesters or anyone resisting the state. Rather, they're doing it to help detect vulnerabilities in China's surveillance system and advanced cybersecurity tech. But as far as what's next on the agenda, they plan to expand their cloaking tech to inanimate objects and cars, also aiming to undermine other types of cameras like those using remote sensing, satellites, and aircraft. So, you know, nothing concerning at all. And then Apple is giving the FBI the middle finger, sort of, with Apple announcing yesterday that they will be providing the option for users to fully encrypt their iCloud backups, with the goal of putting that data out of reach for most hackers, but also notably law enforcement. Or because, well, notably it said that iMessages between Apple devices are already end-to-end encrypted, most users also back up their iMessages, photos, and other content to their iCloud, where Apple could then retrieve it for locked out users or law enforcement, also making it reachable by determined hackers to use for embarrassment at best and extortion at worst. So Apple has decided that the best option is to make data end-to-end encrypted within the cloud. Though, a key thing here is they've actually been trying to do this for years. Right back in 2020, they floated the idea, but the FBI pushed back against it, so they dropped it. Instead, at the time, just walling off specific data like passwords, payment, and health information within the cloud. But now, all data will be encrypted within iCloud, with the exception of things like emails, calendar, and contact data, because they require interoperation with multiple providers. Now, with this, it's expected that law enforcement and governments are going to have something to say about it, considering their long-standing opposition to encryption in the name of national security. But what this is going to look like, it's up in the air, whether it be the complaints we saw last time or even legislative or court action. In fact, late last night, the FBI told the Washington Post it is, quote, deeply concerned with the threat end-to-end and user-only access encryption posed. But either way, it looks like we're going to be seeing this option rather quickly. It reportedly is set to be available to U.S. users by the end of the year and international users next year. So let me know, do you love this? Do you hate this? Are you somewhat torn? Any and all thoughts? I'd love to hear. And then, with football, basketball, hockey, and concerts all in full swing, there's an event for everyone, and you're not going to want to miss out, which is why I want to take a second to thank a fantastic sponsor of the PDS, SeatGeek. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. You know, living in LA, I've used it for the Lakers, the Kings, the Dodgers. I went to the Super Bowl here, and that's in addition to like last-minute off-Broadway shows. And SeatGeek wants to make sure that you're getting a good deal, so when you're on the app, look for the green dots. Green means good deal, red means bad. And every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. And don't worry, description to download the app. And then, one of my writers, Lily, gave me this opening statement for this story. Prepare yourself. States are slamming TikTok harder and faster than how your mom usually asks for it. Lily, this is a family show. It's Christmas in 17 days. But Lily is correct. Right, we've talked about previous efforts at the federal level to impose bans and other regulations on the app many times before, but now what we're seeing are state leaders taking the matter into their own hands. Just yesterday, for example, Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered that all state agencies ban the use of TikTok on any government-issued phones and computers. And in a letter to state officials, Abbott specifically cited concerns over data security on the Chinese-owned app, writing, TikTok harvests vast amounts of data from its users' devices, including when, where, and how they conduct internet activity, and offers this trove of potentially sensitive information to the Chinese government. And adding, while TikTok has claimed that it stores U.S. data within the U.S., the company admitted in a letter to Congress that China-based employees can have access to U.S. data. And it's also been reported that ByteDance planned to use TikTok location information to surveil individual American citizens. With a letter also going on to mention how China's 2017 national intelligence law requires businesses to help China with intelligence work, including data sharing, and noting that the algorithm already censors certain topics that are politically sensitive to the Chinese government. But also, a key thing here is that Abbott is just the most recent Republican governor to take this kind of action. I mean, just this week alone, you had Maryland's Republican governor issuing an emergency directive banning the use of TikTok and other, quote, Chinese and Russian influenced products in the executive branch of the state government. And the governor of South Carolina also requesting that the state's Department of Administration block TikTok on all state government devices that it manages. And all of that comes after South Dakota's governor also barred all state employees and contractors from using TikTok on state-owned devices. And the reason I mention all these individual decisions is that these things are happening in rapid succession. Right prior to the last 2 weeks, Nebraska was the only state to impose these kinds of bans. And they did it back in 2020. But all of this now is likely in part due to the fact that last week, FBI Director Chris Wray raised new concerns about the app, saying its algorithm allows them to manipulate content and, if they want to use it for influence operations, which is why more bans could be on the horizon. Just this week, a group of Wisconsin members of Congress asking the state's Democratic governor to ban TikTok from state devices, and legislators in Arkansas drafting a similar bill for the next session. Hell, just yesterday, Indiana's Attorney General filed 2 lawsuits against TikTok, with the first accusing the company of misleading users about how safe the app is for children, claiming that it exposes them to inappropriate content despite its 12+ age rating on the App Store. The second alleging that the platform deceived customers about China's ability to access their data, saying that it has the ability to spy on, blackmail, and coerce users in the name of Chinese national security. And those suits are actually massive because they've been described as the first of their kind against TikTok and one of the strongest moves against the social media giant taken by a state. Now that's
too bad,
TikTok,
Frank.
for its part,
Not too
responded
bad.
with the classic vague kind of corporate bullshit, saying in a statement that the safety, privacy,
still
and
getting over this
security of
cough
our
that I
community is
have.
our top priority, and adding that it has
barely
many
anything.
tools and policies to ensure
Maybe
children
a
are
cough
only
once
accessing
or
age-appropriate
twice a day,
content,
but
and that
still,
ongoing negotiations with
if I
the U.S.
exert
government
myself.
will address all national security concerns.
still feel like my
The
cardio's
spokesperson
a
also
bit down.
telling the media that TikTok believes that the efforts are largely fueled by misinformation about our company. But I will say, as someone that has a large audience on TikTok, we're about to pass a billion views after just a year. Even I have concerns about what's really happening. And then, in an amazing act of unity, Congress has done the bare minimum. It's both exciting
I still
and
think I'm
depressing when you really think about it.
recovering
It shouldn't
from
have
the
to be a
weekend as
thing.
well
It
also.
shouldn't really even be a thing in question. But I am happy to report that the House has passed the Respect for Marriage Act. So it's on its way to Joe Biden's desk, and when he signs it, same-sex and interracial marriage will be codified in federal law. You know, for a while we didn't know if this was actually going to go through. Right? We even had Senator Tammy Baldwin, who helped lead the charge for the bill's passing on the show. One of the big
That's why I
questions
didn't
at
work
the
out
time
on
being,
Monday.
could Baldwin and others
My-
believe the Republicans who said they would
Let's just
vote
say my
for it
brain
only
was
after
fried
the election. And enough
on
stayed
Monday
true to their word, but
because of
notably
the
the Senate
weekend.
did have to add an amendment to soothe the concerns from Republicans over religious liberty. But ultimately, the Senate got it there, 61 to 36. Now the House making its way through, 258 to 169, with 39 Republicans
Yeah, not
joining
too bad, not
Democrats.
too
So the
bad.
elephant
Really close
in the
to
room
Christmas.
was that 169 people.
You know, the usual
voted
family
against it,
lunches and
including one
dinners coming
Republican
up.
representative who spoke out against it, saying,
Last day
Mr.
of work
Speaker,
next week,
I'll tell you my priority.
then 3 weeks
Protect
off.
religious liberty, protect people of faith, and protect Americans who believe in the true meaning of marriage. I hope,
Oh,
pray,
let's say,
my colleagues
um,
will find the courage
yeah, 3 weeks off. We normally get 3 weeks off. That's what we get.
in opposing
Because this
this
sick leave and like leave doesn't exist in where I work.
Like, I try to put myself.
So at the end of the year, we
in
always
other
get 3
people's
weeks
shoes,
off.
but I can't imagine a world where I would be brought to tears because gay people get to have some of the same rights as me. Right? This
I don't get
coming from
paid
a
for it,
person
though,
that likely
so,
calls
yeah.
others snowflakes.
I just
And
can't
remember,
completely
she's
just wanna
crying
enjoy
over a thing
myself.
that doesn't even fully do what it should do. Right? A key thing with this law is it's not going to force states to issue marriage licenses for same-sex couples. It just requires a state to go, oh, we recognize this marriage as long as the marriage license is valid where it was performed. Repealing Bill Clinton's 1996 Defense of Marriage Act that defined marriages between a man and a woman, which also gave states the ability to not recognize
yourself, you
same-sex
getting any
marriages
time off at
performed
the end
in
of the
other
year?
states, which is part of the reason why it's like it's a day to celebrate, but also it's a day to be like, man, we truly live in a world where we have to celebrate the bare fucking minimum. And then they tried to overthrow the German government. Right? If you didn't see, 25 people were arrested early Wednesday morning by German police for plotting to overthrow the government in a violent coup, with the majority of those arrested being accused of being a part of a terrorist organization, and the remainder, including a Russian national, are said to be democracy supporters. So key details. The arrests were part of a series of raids that stretched across 11 of Germany's states and into Austria and Italy. Also, an additional 27 people had properties searched in the raids and reportedly being investigated on suspicion of being members or supporters, with this organization said to subscribe to several conspiracy theories. Most notably here, the idea that Germany's republic after World War II doesn't actually
So is it
exist,
just the public
but is rather an
holidays, or
administrative construct set
you
up
getting
by
the
the
week
Allies.
off?
The Germany's federal public prosecutor's statement saying they are firmly convinced that Germany is currently governed by members of a so-called deep state. And according to the statement, this group was planning on installing their own government and leader after their coup. They'd also gathered new members, established a new administrative structure, obtained weapons, and provided shooting lessons to their ranks. Oh my god, why does it sound familiar? And they were prepared to use those lessons, with the prosecutor's statement saying, the members of the association are aware that this project can only be realized through the use of military means and violence against state representatives. This also includes the commission
Just
of
the Mondays.
homicide. With some even suspected of making plans
You're
for
a hard
armed
worker.
force entry into Germany's parliament building.
Something I
I
still
know
get
where
to
I've
learn.
heard this story before. But also we saw German lawmakers drawing a comparison between this organization and the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th.
I've got some patients
At
who
the
are working
latest,
through
since January 6, 2021, we have known
this
that
holiday
anti-democratic
season
speech
also.
can also be followed by actions directed against democracy and parliament. Today, the German security authorities have succeeded in putting a stop to such plans to seize power, with 19 of those arrested, reprimanded in court yesterday, and the remaining 6 set to see a judge today. But hey, here's what I'll say. Good job, Germany. Maybe it's because it is your history, but it is good to see a country understand history so you sufficiently take serious the threat of an armed insurrection. Because sometimes when you don't take it serious and maybe people just get a slap on the wrist, it's just a test run. You don't use kid gloves on fascists who've got murder on their mind. And then, since we're already talking about coups today, we should talk about Peru, because they just arrested President Pedro Castillo for trying to abolish the constitutional order. Or if you didn't see this yesterday, he tried to get rid of Congress and take power. The far-left Castillo took office last year after a tight runoff election, and his opponents were not fans of his, and they controlled Congress, which then enacted its constitutional right to use the Attorney General to investigate him on like 6 different corruption charges, 3 of which eventually led to what are called constitutional complaints, aka de facto charges against him. With all of that leading to Castillo claiming that his opponents have been trying to enact their own coup since day one through these investigations, and all the while he couldn't keep ministers in office as they kept resigning or
I don't know
being
if I'm getting
replaced, and more
weaker.
corruption allegations came out
Or
against
if I'm
him
just
and his
pushing
close
myself
friends and
harder.
family, with it eventually coming to a head yesterday when Congress made it clear that it was going to vote to impeach the president. And at this point, it wasn't just those on the right, with many of Castillo's own
I've
party
done
ditched
weighted
him.
legs
However,
in a
the
while.
president attempted to play his trap card and claim that he was abolishing Congress and enacting an emergency government that would rule by decree. And during that time, he hoped that a new parliamentary election could take place in order to draft a new constitution. Now, this move was widely denounced both within Peru and by the international community as a coup. Within the country, many of the president's own cabinet and party members abandoned ship and resigned en masse. Even Dina Boluarte, his own vice president, had ditched him by this point and tweeted, "I reject the decision by Pedro Castillo to perpetrate the breakdown of the constitutional order by closing Congress. It's a coup d'etat that aggravates the political and institutional crisis that Peruvian society will have to overcome with strict adherence to the law." And internationally, we saw the U.S. ambassador to Peru tweet out, "The U.S. strongly urges President Castillo to reverse his attempt to shut down Congress and allow Peru's democratic institutions to function according to the Constitution." And adding, "We encourage the Peruvian public to remain calm during this uncertain time." While Argentina's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, "Argentina regrets
sort
and
of feel sorry
expresses
for my
its deep
patients
concern over the political crisis that the
when I
sister
work out
republic of Peru is going through,
before
and
I go to
calls on
work.
all political and social actors to
they're not
safeguard
getting
democratic
100% of me.
institutions, the rule of law, and constitutional
Ah.
order." Within Peru itself, there was almost no time for people
I've
to
done it
actually
enough
panic
that
about
I'm
what would happen,
effective.
with the military quick to say no and
Even when
called
I'm
it
not
an infringement of the
100%.
Constitution. Shortly after that, Congress was like, yeah, no, with a meeting up anyways and voting to impeach and remove him from office. And in the end, 101 of 130 members voted to
I
get
can
rid of
feel it
Castillo, with
sometimes.
just 6 members of his own party voting against the measure. He was also charged with rebellion and arrested
I
while he was
fatigue
still
a
on his
little
way
bit.
out of the area by his own police escort. Also, his wife, alongside his
Yeah.
sister-in-law, are both under heavy scrutiny for their alleged corruption, with a ton
That's
of
why I train, I
accusations
guess.
out there that there was a whole web around
make sure I can
Castillo
always
that
give
was used to
100%
enrich
even when I'm
those
not.
close to him. And while Castillo obviously
God, I
denies all
sound
this,
like
it remains to be seen
an
how
ad
Peru is
right
going
now.
to handle all of this. But in the meantime, Boluarte has been sworn in as president and is the country's first female president. While on the
Now the
streets of
question,
Peru,
do I
we've seen
stop at
Castillo's
5 sets or
followers
do I
coming
stop
out
at
to
6?
protest. Many have praised Peru for taking such quick action and stopping this illegal power grab. Which I will say, as an American, it's very interesting to see what happens in a country where, a president who tries to destroy the country and become a dictator actually gets
Frank,
held
you
responsible.
interested
But the
in
guy's not even done. He just
any new
recently
games
called
that
for the
might be coming
Constitution
out
to
next year?
completely ignored and installed into power. But anyway, and then I'm hungry, man.
I'm sticking
boy,
close to
daddy,
Star
whatever you wanna
Wars
call
and
me. But the main point being,
the
I
Cyberpunk
like
expansion.
snacks, which is why I want to tell you about a sponsor.
But
of
my
the
gaming
podcast,
rig is just-
Baksu is my favorite
holding on.
Japanese snack box. They
I
work
need an
with family
upgrade
businesses
soon.
throughout Japan to send you a new theme of authentic treats every month. The first box you'll receive is Seasons of Japan, and after that you'll receive
I
a
guess
new
Tekken
theme
8,
box
but
like
that's
this
a
one. We got a
default.
little
I
sneak
was
peek
always
of the
gonna
next
play Tekken.
box, which is Shinshan New Year, which I will say the matcha chocolate covered strawberries are insane, sweet and slightly sour. It even comes with a booklet that takes you through the theme, the origins of the snacks, and details on the flavors. I love Japan when your first Baksu order. And then we're best friends, right? Well, actually, no. I can have a deep appreciation for you. You can have a deep appreciation for me, but we don't actually know each other. But also understand, it's not weird. A lot of you probably feel attached to some celebrity, a podcaster, an influencer, an artist, a creator, or some sort of public figure. That's something that's already happened, but especially something that's more understandable as the content's gotten more personal. And it's something that's become fairly normal as a part of media consumption, and of course, we've talked about it before, parasocial relationships. Right? For me, this isn't like a completely new feeling. Even with characters on scripted shows, I feel connections with them. Sometimes when series end, I feel like I just got broken up with. This thing that made me feel something in what was ultimately a one-sided relationship is now gone. But because I think we're seeing this more and more, I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to try to understand parasocial relationships more, talk about, how they impact us. So we reached out to Dr. Gail Stever, a professor of psychology at Empire State College, who has studied parasocial theory and interaction for decades. And it turns out the reason why we form these relationships, it sounds simple, but it's also very interesting. It has to do with the fact that our brain is wired to always look for a social connection, whether it be in person or just watching something on a screen.
And there's a part of your brain that can't really tell the difference between a person in real life and a person through media. So those images and voices are all being processed as if they are real. If you see the same face and voice over and over and over, your human tendency is to want to form a relationship with that person.
So it also feels like it makes sense to learn that some of the earlier studies on parasocial relationships actually focused on soap operas. I don't know if you had a parent like this, but my stepmom loved soap operas. Or the closest thing the younger generation had to that were like daily vloggers or people binging stuff on Netflix. But specifically with older people, because they tend to spend a lot of time alone, soaps fill the social void. And parasocial relationships can fill all sorts of void for anyone, whether it be role models, entertainment, companionship, or even romance. So Steve pointing to one woman that she had met recently who lost her husband to cancer, so she thinks, the romantic part of my life, it's over. But then all of a sudden she becomes a huge fan of Josh Groban. And even though she was much older than him, she was likely not going to meet him, she had a crush on him.
What did that do for her? Well, what she said was, I realized that part of my emotions was still there, that I could still have a romantic feeling about somebody. And I'm thinking now about dating again.
With Steve also noting that is an example of a very healthy parasocial relationship. One where it's not like she's stalking this guy, and it actually helped to break down walls of her social life. Without you specifically realizing it, you may have formed some parasocial relationships to fill the gaps in your life as well. Especially with us now coming out of the pandemic. During the empanada, there was increased loneliness for basically everyone. The Paraguay made it more likely that we would connect to people we saw on our screens. With Steve even saying during that time, she joked that Colbert was her parasocial therapist.
And he was helping you as a viewer process challenges of the pandemic by letting you see how he was coping with it. In that particular case, using humor to help sort of diffuse some of the tension of what people were experiencing socially. So you walk away from the show and you feel like, gosh, there's somebody else who understands what I'm going through.
Colbert wasn't the only one doing that. All the late night hosts were, as well as influencers and celebrities. So during the perineum, consuming and interacting with all this media became a very universal experience. But understand, while it was certainly heightened during the panini, it was something that just existed because of social media. Right on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, me right now, you have people talking to the camera directly addressing the people that are watching. Whether that me speaking generally or saying specific names like, "Hi, James." And this form of direct communication that's become massively popular online has changed how we engage with these relationships.
It's a very interpersonal feeling to the interaction. I do think that social media, because of the direct address, has formed a more intimate kind of parasocial relationship.
And it can feel personal when we see these people on our screens every day, and I understand this. I understand before I made videos and I felt like I was fostering a community, I was someone in the stands watching. Hell, it's part of the reason I even started this show. I used to watch the show as a Frank, and when it ended, I felt like, oh my God, where'd my sense of community go? Right, so familiarity and repetition is a huge part of it.
I would venture that these media people that we watch over and over and over, we know more about them than we know about our neighbors.
For me, that is a fact. And social media also opens the door for there to be a two-way interaction. Or there's always a chance they're going to see what you say, and they might even respond to your post or your comment. But Steve even noting that, yeah, through these interactions, it is a two-way street. Celebrities might actually recognize and know certain fans based on the interactions. But in addition to all of that, social media has allowed fans to connect more with one another. Steve has actually been studying fandom since back in the 80s, and back then they put out ads in magazines looking for people to join pen pal groups. But now, in an instant, you can access a whole world of people with a device that fits in your back pocket, and
they can go on Facebook or Instagram and find like-minded fans and become part of a network of fans and have that be part of their social life.
Now, with fandoms, you might automatically jump to the most extreme situations. When you think about the most extreme fans, you think about scary stories, hearing about celebrities being stalked and harassed. Right online, there have been instances of like extreme fans, stalkers showing up, police getting involved. I mean, there was a story, I won't mention who, but police had to show up and shoot and kill this person. And then you see situations like Tana Mojo having a stalker sending her photos of a guy holding a knife outside of her house.
Now he found my new house house's address. He lives out of a van. He messages me like every second. He sent a photo of his dick too.
And that also kind of feels like a trend, right? We've seen the likes of Belle Delphine saying she got death threats from stalkers, right? People taking photos of themselves outside of her house in the middle of the night, right? And so we see these stories in the news all the time, but Stever says that this kind of dangerous behavior may not be directly related to that person's parasocial relationship with a celebrity in the way that we think.
There are people out there who think celebrity worship is a slippery slope to mental illness. I haven't seen it. I've done case studies of fans for over 30 years, and I meet a lot of fans face to face. Most of the fans I meet who are troubled fans, who are engaging in a way that's not healthy, have an underlying mental illness.
So Steve was saying that it's less to do with the parasocial attachment and far more with the pre-existing mental illness that they've been struggling with. Right? It's more so the mental illness aspect that causes a bigger problem, leading to troubling behavior. Saying that based off of her observations, superfans are not necessarily more likely to suffer from mental illness than the general population at large. And saying in her experience, the fans that she met are largely grounded in reality, of sound mind, and understand they'll likely never meet the celebrity that they love. Though, notable thing, saying their feelings on this might be moderately controversial because it requires more research. So there is room for disagreement among experts.
It's the old, I already said, chicken and the egg question: which came first? The fixation on the celebrity or the underlying issue that has caused them to become fixated? And it really, we need a whole lot more research to definitively answer that question.
And even though Stever noted that there is wiggle room for how people understand this idea that the behavior of superfans and stalkers being separate, that's actually been echoed by a number of people who have experienced it themselves. With Alexis Bowater, for example, a TV presenter and news reporter in the UK who's been stalked herself, telling BBC News that she feels that superfans and stalkers have little in common. Though here, it is also worth noting that there are other things that experts have suggested to watch out for to make sure parasocial relationships do not become unhealthy. Right? One of the big things, make sure these relationships don't actually replace relationships with people that you know. Also, don't think about these relationships as mutual. But with all that said, and us now on the other side of this conversation, I do want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on this topic? Also, what are your experiences with this, or experiences that you've also witnessed? But that is where today's show ends. As always, thank you for watching, liking, and being a part of these daily dives into the news. Remember, whether it be this show or the previous three, I'm going to be taking some of your comments and talking about them on Sunday. But as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you Sunday. A lot of focus on the Liver King, or rather the Liver Liar, or the fitness influencer who made ungodly amounts of money selling everyday solutions to be as fit as him, though turns out, shocker, he was on steroids. But I feel like everyone except the young boys he indoctrinated, like, we're aware. This is like finding out water's wet. And when looking through the comments, I think people like Chantal hit it right on the money, saying us normal folk need to just accept that these fitness influencers are doing the same exact thing that large fitness companies are doing. They sell pipe dreams, they are deceptive, and they are predatory. And on the other side, there really wasn't another side. The rest of the reactions were people just laughing at his apology. It is reeked of bullshit. Oh, you did this to save the young men? Had nothing to do with the millions and millions of dollars you likely made. But then on Monday, the story that was kind of a surprise to me that I got the most attention was that streamer Amaranth getting that getaway kit from a fan. Right? It was 60 grand, or actually ended up being $69,000. So there might be a sense of humor there, as well as a taser, a new phone, and some security groups on retainer. And with this, you have people like Amy Daniels saying that the person sending the help is kind of in a lose-lose when it comes to how they're being perceived. Writing, people, why won't anyone do anything to help her? And then people, after someone gives her tools to live safely and options for support should she need it, why are people being so creepy towards her? Like, do you want people to help or not? What are people supposed to do? Pray for her, but then never actually offer real assistance because it might be seen as perverted? Though I will say, actually, the majority of the comments were very supportive, with people saying things like, that guy sent $70K and phone. To be honest, not creepy. It's legit a fan with a lot to give and probably a history of abuse in their own family. Honestly, with anyone going through abuse with no way out, this would be a God-sent miracle. And there, I will say, there did appear to be this widespread general theory that the person that sent this money must have faced abuse in their own life. Though, going through the comments, there were a few people that said, like, maybe she's faking it. And that ranged from the abuse allegations to the $70,000 kit, which I would say, I'm not the person in question. But I just can't imagine a world where that would be the case. She didn't need the attention. She was making millions and millions of dollars every month before this. I can say, as someone that has seen it on the outside, abuse can happen in any relationship, no matter how rich or successful a person may be. Also, I saw people pointing to the fact that she still does like hot tub streams and stuff like that, which to me felt like there's this group of people that fails to grasp that, like, there is a difference between being forced to do something or heavily pressured to, and just doing something when you want to. Right? Those are drastically different scenarios, even if they're functionally the same thing. But then finally on Monday, we had people talking about China shifting its zero COVID policy. One of you apparently living there and detailing how the system's working. Writing, I live in Hangzhou, China. We no longer need to test every 3 days and no longer need to show our QR code when on public transport. Those who work at school still need to scan their QR health code, but still don't need to test. Test stations are still set up, and if someone near you is confirmed to have COVID, your health code will turn yellow and you'll need to go test. But also, the general sentiment was just a shock at how much zero COVID fucked up entire cities. And in particular, how they dealt with things like that man who just didn't want to leave his apartment. And then, on Tuesday, we talked and asked about Jenna Ortega. Right, is it her fault? Should she be held accountable or not for filming while having COVID? And essentially, in the conversation, no one actually was blamed. With Corbin describing the situation as going against higher-ups is scary. I get why, when told to go finish filming the scene despite having COVID symptoms, she would just go do it rather than facing potential backlash for not listening and being, quote, difficult to work with. And Beth also on the same page, writing, the reason I think Jenna Ortega is less at fault than the higher-ups is I remember being 19. Imagine being 19, breaking into your desired field, and you're playing one of the most iconic characters of all time and working with Tim Burton. I sure as hell wouldn't be going against what production told me to do in that situation, regardless of how much it harmed me. While people like Joshua gave some insight into how this could happen, saying, I currently work in the film industry and have worked through the pandemic. Time and time again, I have watched productions ignore their own rules when faced with a positive result. With them going on to describe a situation where people began testing positive on site, and instead of just shutting things down, top brass began to merge production days in order to get more work done before they were required to test people. Key thing, even though they knew people had been in contact with positive cases and that it had probably already spread. We also had a lot of conversation around AI-generated art, and it was contentious. Artists like Rebecca saying AI art is hurting us a lot. I already have a hard time getting people to understand why I charge the amount that I do for my art. Now AI can crank out 10 different images in varying styles in a matter of seconds? How the hell do we compete with that? This is going to devalue our work to the point that people will look at it and say, I can get an AI to do the same thing for me for way cheaper, so why should I pay you? It's not fair, Phil. But also at the same time, there were a lot of takes that AI won't kill art at all. People saying things like, my view on AI art is that it doesn't really take away from real artists. In fact, it will probably benefit them. People will be able to tell the difference, and that will increase demand for real art. And art has value because it gives you something unique. This will force artists to be more creative, original, and make art with new mediums. If a computer or a machine can do your work faster, better, and for less money, then you don't bring anything unique to the table. Art didn't die when cameras and photographs were invented, and it won't die now. With some saying that real artists, it'll kind of turn into an artisanal craft. Or people making comparisons that, like there are companies that mass-produce diamonds, saying real diamonds are still valued more by many. Which I will say, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that angle. That's just because the diamond industry, that's a whole fucking 20-minute story on its own. However, with all that we've talked about, none of that really resolved the concerns about how the AI is trained. Right? On one hand, you have people arguing that the AI learning from artwork is the same as students learning from pieces of art and being inspired. With someone saying, if I uploaded a picture I drew in the style of Junji Ito, that was pretty much spot on, but nonetheless original, would I get sued by Junji Ito? I don't think I would, even though they did not give me permission. But when an AI looks and does the same thing, that's a problem. You're a drop in the ocean of what the AI is learning from. If you could show that a piece of generated image was directly taken from something you drew, then that would be an argument. But I really don't think that's the case, not with the AI I've seen. Although I have seen evidence that this person does not exist, only makes small changes to existing images, kind of like a deepfake, and that's a problem. But anything goes, and others pointed out that AI images do sometimes directly take pieces from existing works. Writing, it's a fact that in many generated pictures you can find fragmented signatures or traceable snippets of specific individual art pieces. AI art generation is a gnashing maw shoveled full of existing works, and it spits out a mouthful of mush and distinct fragments. If an artist didn't consent to their art being used, it's very likely that the AI generation will eventually use a distinguishable part of an existing work. That new image is passed off as a uniquely generated image when in fact it's partly copied. And if an artist didn't agree to the use of their work, then you're taking an artist's personal property for commercial use without their consent. This is quite literally theft. Right, so this AI art is more akin to someone taking a bunch of snippets of other people's work and slamming them together, which is why you have people defending it, saying essentially this is then transformative. And honestly, looking at all the conversation and debate, I feel like I'm just as lost on this topic as before. It's a messy, weird, new space. Personally, I'm not looking at using AI art for our clothing or posters, anything like that. We'll still be working directly with artists. But yeah, I completely understand why artists are freaked out about this. And then, I love sipping wine during the holidays, but I hate the stress that comes with picking out bottles I may or may not like. But thanks to a sponsor of today's show, I can just chill and let Bright Cellars be my personal wine service. Whether you're new to wine or not, Bright Cellars offers fantastic wine curated to your taste, delivered straight to your door. You just answer a 7-question quiz and they match the wines to your taste palette. Right, based on the results of my quiz, Bright Cellars provided me with wines that had tropical and floral notes and black fruit notes. It's my 2 favorite things, easy and awesome. And each box includes wine education cards with tasting notes, pairing suggestions, wine origin, and even the best serving temperature for each bottle. Well, the Avast Dry White and Lost City Malbec were big hits at Thanksgiving this year. And the Lost City pairing with some roasted duck, the Avast Dry White going with some risotto. Oh my God. And, I just rate the wines I receive and they send me wines I enjoy. With any questions about a bottle, their concierge team is quick to answer. So give yourself the gift of self-care this holiday season, or give Bright Sellers as a gift. It definitely makes for a great last-minute gift card. So yeah, thank you, Bright Sellers, for giving these beautiful bastards a limited time offer of $50 off of their first 6-bottle box. Just click that link in the description to get started. You can thank me later. And then, this actually connects to Wednesday, because I was a glutton for punishment / liked everyone arguing, and we brought up AI again. Though this time, not just focusing on art, instead having AI write a story. So with that, we saw Sam, I think, saying what a lot of artists are feeling. Saying, as a concept artist myself, this whole AI art development is honestly terrifying. If companies have the option to use AI over paying actual visual development artists to cut costs, they will. I just graduated from art school 6 months ago, and seeing people already start to dunk on artists who have developed their skills for years is very discouraging, and makes me wonder if this career choice was a mistake. I'm hoping that AI becomes more of a tool for artists than a complete replacement. No computer could ever replicate the kinds of creative decisions that real-life artists make. Which, I would never say never, but in general, where things are right now, I agree with that last statement, right? AI will take you 70-80% of the way there, maybe, but then most would actually need a human artist to get it across the finish line. And I mean, to a point, that's almost like what we do at Beautiful Bastard. Like, some designs are all made in-house, but others, we use other artists somewhere else, and we bring the design in, we tweak it, we like elements or themes of it. And I mean, hey, to the idea of maybe it could be used as a tool, yeah, if you're an artist and you have one of those clients that's like, yeah, I can't give you any notes, you could maybe have AI make a bunch of images that show off like different kinds of color theory, and then different styles, and then maybe the client goes like, oh, I like this and this, and that way it potentially saves you time. You do fewer rounds of this like pointless work. Though I would ask artists if that makes sense. I've only been the annoying client. But yeah, that's the last we're going to talk about AI today, especially because a big chunk of the conversation where y'all having a lot to say about the interview we had with Alex, with a big focus being on that 4-day work week, starting with no drink the bleach, which by the way, great advice. Talking about how great their 4-day work week was, even though theirs specifically was 4 days of 10 hours, and adding having a 3-day weekend was life altering. The extra time I suddenly had to get through the mundane and fun tasks alike more than made up for the time lost. And working 4 8-hour days would be wonderful, because I would then feel less rushed to get to and from work, and the shorter time at work would likely result in less clock watching and hiding from management. You also had a teacher saying that a 4-day work week would actually make classes easier, saying oftentimes you see teachers not wanting to teach new content on Fridays or start with a test on Monday. Students and teachers across the board have issues staying motivated to grind through all the days anyway, and that has been well documented and reported. And even if teachers had 5 but students had 4, we could use the 5th day to do all the other stuff that's usually not seen, like IEP meetings, parent-teacher conferences, and calls, and planning for lessons that is usually left to do on our own unpaid time. Which, if that's the case, I'm all for teachers not having to take their work home with them. There was also a unique solution that maybe some of you would prefer. Instead of Monday through Thursday, it would be Monday, Tuesday, have Wednesday off, and work Thursday and Friday. So with some saying it would offer a nice little break in the middle of the week to sleep in, or just get
long
done,
weekend, man. That's what you want.
Personal tasks. But then
The
finally,
midweek's not bad either. I got some friends who are on that. I prefer the long weekend.
So people like Molly telling us, I'm a social worker based in Chicago, and it has gotten so bad not only with the
Just give you
SSA's
more
lack
time
of
to recover.
organization. I've had some of my patients' applications with medical information just fully go missing, but the representatives are so backlogged. Denial without even an interview is super common now. It's so disheartening to work with terminally ill children and not be able to promise them relief. Despite the long wait times, I cannot even find them private financial aid because it can cause them to be denied as well. The system just is not working. Even marking a case as urgent and terminally ill doesn't help as much as it used to. Well, Amelia expanding on this and saying, I work with unhoused individuals, and my coworker's sole job is applying people for disability, and let me tell you, it is soul-crushing work. The amount of hoops that people have to jump through just to be denied are astounding. My coworkers even receive the response of reapply when they get sicker. It's such a broken system, but I don't ever see it getting better. And then that brings us to Thursday, where I think Adolfo pointed out a huge connection that I can't believe we missed regarding this tech from China to hide you from camera, saying China working on invisibility technology and John Cena being fluent in Mandarin Chinese. Coincidence? I think not. And if anything, I'd like to just apologize for not talking about this very obvious, clear aspect to the story. But in all seriousness, most of the comments were about the IShowSpeed situation, right? A lot of you were super angry at IShowSpeed, saying that he was being blatantly racist in this clip.
Bro, and come back. Why you got on Argentina, bro? Konnichiwa? No, Chinese. Konnichiwa, Argentina. Chinese. No konnichiwa. Point.
Right, and Speed later apologized, saying he didn't realize that he was just trying to connect with him, but no, none of you really bought that, right? Belladonna, for example, saying, I feel for that Chinese dude being screamed at with konnichiwa, and then Ching Chong Cheng, all because he had an Argentina jersey on while being Asian. Racism is so gross. I hope that kid Speed gets the education he needs. There's a number of people in the conversation talking about how people who aren't racist or don't think they're racist can still do racist things, with Tash expanding on that and adding, Speed doesn't have to be a racist for his words and actions to be racist. He doesn't get to mock Asians to his millions of of followers, then try to hide behind his age and assert that what he did wasn't racist. It's hurtful, perpetuates stereotypes, and teaches his young audience that this type of behavior is okay if it's an Asian person at the other end of it. With someone also writing, I had a friend correct me once when I got defensive. I admired his patience. He calmly sat me down and said, whether or not you're racist isn't the point. Your character is completely separate from the action itself. I was like, oh shit, blew my mind. I think folks unknowingly make it about them. Then moving on, we had our interview with Gail Stever about parasocial relationship, which I will say I'm very happy we ended up releasing, because I almost didn't because of some of the audio issues that we managed to fix. And with watching that piece, a lot of you commented about your experiences with parasocial relationships, saying things like they've always fascinated me. There have been dozens of fictional characters, whether on screen or in writings, that have quite literally been the reason I continued going on in life, namely in high school. I had friends, but I think the relationship between fictional media and myself not being mutual is what helped so much. They lived in a world that didn't have my specific problems, that I didn't have to talk about what was wrong. I could just feel better by consuming the content. There were also people who learned something about their friends who engage in these relationships. We even heard from a researcher who's looking into how parasocial relationships are used by political campaigns, with them noting, my case study is focusing on the 2022 Philippine elections, but it is drawing on results found in Israel and the United States as well, which have all found that parasociality can be used as a means of tracking voter behavior. And then, alright, online banner ads, sidebars, and pop-ups are everywhere, especially with the holidays here. Right, whether it be mainstream news sites to less than legal porn hubs. While most are just colorful distractions, some are malvertising ads to infect your device with malware and viruses. So how do you block the dangerous sites and help get peace of mind? Well, that is where our fantastic partner and sponsor of the PDS, NordVPN, or more directly, nordvpn.com/Phil comes in. Right, hackers will create a convincing advert containing hidden lines and malicious code and find a way to feature their content on a legitimate website. Then when you click the ad, you'll be directed to a dangerous server from which the rest of the attack will be launched. But with NordVPN's threat protection. And then, the Minnesota Pharmaceutical Board filed a lawsuit this week against Northland Vapor. And this because they were allegedly selling edible products with 50 times the legal limit of THC content. This including their aptly named Death by Gummy Bears, as well as their Wonky Weeds edibles and their Wonky Weeds THC syrup. In fact, these things are so strong that the board reports that at least one person died after consuming them. Though they're a key thing, the FDA has not confirmed that the adverse reactions reported were actually caused by the edibles or something else entirely. But either way, the board's lawsuit is calling for a court order for the destruction of all edible products sold by this retailer and demands they stay within the state's legal limits. And then, apparently, instead of bonuses or fair working conditions, Amazon has decided to offer a thank your driver feature this holiday season. Right, so when you say to your in-home wiretap, Alexa, thank my driver, Amazon will give the driver who delivered your packages $5 at no cost to you. Now with this, it does look like they do stack, but they are finite, with Amazon saying they'll only give that crisp Abe Lincoln for the first million thank yous, with the added bonus of 10 grand to the top 5 most thanked drivers, plus an additional 10 grand to a charity of their choice. So, hey, that is something you can do, but also it feels kinda shitty. I mean, how many times have we talked on this show about the shit that Amazon drivers have to go through? You got motherfuckers peeing in bottles because they're scared that they don't have time for bathroom breaks. And there was that study that found in 2021 nearly 1 in 5 Amazon delivery drivers suffered injuries. And let's not forget their union busting efforts this year. But then also you have people saying, okay, put that aside. Let's do some math. Amazon has reported 275,000 drivers. If they're offering $5 for the first million thank yous, that's $5 million. Meaning that even if every driver got their thank yous right away, that comes out to a total of less than $20 per driver with their first million cap. But then on the other side of things, let's say, one driver gets 100. For them, that becomes $500. But that also means that there are drivers out there that are going to get less. So that's why to me, this feels more like a PR, like trying to be seen as doing something for your employees rather than actually trying to do something for your employees. And then we saw the New York Times going on strike. You had over 1,000 staffers, including journalists, designers, news assistants, and security guards, staging a 24-hour walkout, notably making this the first major work stoppage to hit the paper in 40 years. And as far as why it's happening, workers and management have spent months struggling over pensions, health benefits, and remote work requirements. But above all, the biggest dispute was over pay, where you've got the union demanding 5.5% average pay raises for 2023 and 2024, with the company refusing to budge past 3%. Plus, they couldn't come to an agreement on minimum salaries and retroactive bonuses for the period since the last contract expired, with employees arguing that they need more money to keep up with the rising inflation and housing costs in New York City. Also pointing out that in their latest earnings call, executives projected a total adjusted operating profit of up to $330 million by the end of the year. So some staffers argue that they should get a bigger cut of the success, especially since they've endured stagnant wages and belt-tightening during leaner times for the company. And this, as they pointed out, that much of that cash has been poured into executive compensation, share buybacks, and dividends. And as for what the Times did without a huge chunk of that staff, it did still put out a news report and even added an unsigned article about the strike. And then, Ted Cruz's daughter is eviscerating the media right now. So here's the situation. You have 14-year-old Caroline Cruz. She made headlines earlier this year when she posted on her TikTok account that she was bisexual and that she disagrees with her dad on most political issues, which is also why we saw a lot of people jumping to conclusions when police showed up at the Cruz home in Houston responding to a report of a 14-year-old with self-inflicted stab wounds on her arms. With that, you had Ted's office confirming it was his daughter and that she went to the hospital, but insisting she was okay and requesting privacy for his family. But in the wake of this, we saw some media outlets and a number of people online doing the exact opposite, claiming, without evidence, that the incident was related to her sexuality and her father's homophobic views, which then led to Caroline returning to TikTok with a scripted statement accusing the media of completely altering the story and exploiting her mental health for their gain.
Honestly, I think it's sick that they're using a 14-year-old as a publicity tool. I also don't enjoy the assumptions on why I did what I did. No, it had nothing to do with my sexuality or my father.
She then says she's not suicidal, but she is experiencing mental issues and is getting the help she needs. And adding the most traumatizing part of all of this is how public it's been. Which I will say, on that note, it's why I deliberately avoided talking about this story last week. I try to be in the news business, not the speculation business, but now that she's spoken out for herself and she's talking about the coverage in the media, I think it makes sense to make her the central voice of the story. Right? Not to talk shit or villainize others, but now it feels a little more appropriate to cover it. But back to her response, she then soon uploads a second TikTok. It follows up on the first, this time it's not scripted, and here saying she's more than just Ted Cruz's daughter, that she has her own dreams and aspirations, and saying that she wants to be recognized for that.
And this had nothing to do with my father, and it's honestly dehumanizing how everyone has to relate everything back to my father. Yes, I've experienced hardships because of who he is, but I'm also a teenage girl, and that's not the only thing I'm going through.
And with this, I'd love to know really any of your thoughts. Right, there's a lot to talk about regarding journalistic ethics, as well as the way that children are often overshadowed by the celebrity parents and mental health issues. Yeah, let me know what you're thinking. And then, Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema has left the Democratic Party, which, yeah, it makes sense. She didn't seem like she was a Democrat. But notably, this just days after the runoff results from Georgia, which gave the Democrats a majority of 51-49, and announcing this switch to being an independent in an interview with CNN. Now, as far as what this means, it reportedly doesn't look like a whole lot. The Democrats' lead already includes 2 independents that formerly caucus with them, right? Bernie Sanders and Angus King. Although Sinema didn't say whether she would do the same, but she did mention that she hopes to keep her current committee positions.
I intend to maintain my position on my committees and keep doing the work that I've been doing for Arizona. So I don't think that things will change in terms of how I operate or the work that I do in the United States Senate.
She also seemed to indicate that her voting pattern won't change, telling Politico, "Nothing will change about my values or my behavior. I don't anticipate anything will change about the Senate structure." And as for the White House's response, it was pretty tame. The press secretary saying they have, quote, "every reason to expect that we will continue to work successfully with her," and another White House official saying that Sinema's switch, quote, "doesn't change much." But where it might have a huge impact is with Sinema's re-election in 2024, where they're saying to Politico here, "It's fair to say that I'm not talking about it right now. I keep my eye focused on what I'm doing right now, and registering as an independent is what I believe is right for my state. It's right for me. I think it's right for the country." But this also doesn't touch on the fact that there are a number of people that don't think that she would actually survive a Democratic primary. But hey, we'll see. When I heard this news, I was surprised, but also not surprised. Sinema to me always seemed like this person that loves being seen as unique and different, potentially likes the smell of her own farts, right? Commenting on the unique medley of aromas. But hey, good luck to you, Kyrsten. Excited to see what roadblocks you and Manchin can come up with in the next 2 years. But that is where that story and today's show ends. As always, thank you for being a part of this and all our daily dives into the news. Also, prepare yourself for 4 brand new shows this week starting tomorrow. But as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Well, he
We're going to
tried.
talk about that and so much more of the news that matters today on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. So buckle up, hit that like button, and let's just jump into it. Starting with Elon Musk being booed for several straight minutes by a very large crowd at a Dave Chappelle show, with him at one point responding by yelling, "I'm rich, bitch." Sounds like a weird Mad Lib, but is a real thing that happened. So let's break it down. Dave Chappelle was performing at the Chase Center in San Francisco, and he brings out this special guest.
Make some noise for the richest man in the world.
And to be fair, from the videos, it does seem, at least in the beginning, that there are varied reactions. You can hear both cheers and boos, though as it keeps going on, the booing does seem to get louder and louder, with Chappelle even commenting on the mix initially.
Cheers and boos, I see.
Then as the commotion continues, the boos get louder. Chappelle kind of tries to make a joke.
What expecting this, boy? It sounds like some of them people you fired in the audience.
You then see Chappelle kind of take a more defensive stance for Musk, though the way he initially does it is by basically calling part of his own fan base poor.
All those people are booing, and I'm just pointing out the obvious. You have terrible seats, and I understand. All coming from way up there.
And from there, you have Chappelle, you know, cracking jokes here and there, trying to kind of win back the audience. You know, the crowd at points are laughing. Dave Chappelle's a funny dude. Then, once the laughter stops, the chorus of chaos continues. Musk even seeming at a loss as what to do.
Dave, what should I say? Don't say nothing. It'll only spoil the moment. You hear that sound, Elon? That's the sound of impending civil unrest.
With Chappelle then having to address the continuing boos.
You shut the fuck up with your booze. There's something better than you can do. Booing is not the best thing you can do.
Later, you had a bunch of other people hopping on stage, eventually getting Musk to quote the "I'm rich, bitch" line from Chappelle's sketch show. You know, since these videos popped on social media, there's been a big debate around the boos versus the cheers. One person who was there said a good 80% of the stadium booed. 18,000 people and he withers like absolutely turns into a corn cob. A number of people saying, I heard Musk get booed like I've never heard before. But then you had Elon Musk with a different take, tweeting technically it was 90% cheers and 10% boos, except during quiet periods. But still, that's a lot of boos, which is a first for me in real life, frequent on Twitter. It's almost as if I've offended San Francisco's unhinged leftists. But nah. You also had a lot of people accusing Musk of trying to suppress the videos of the situation, saying that he was trying to work to prevent it from trending on Twitter. The reports even noting that a Twitter user who posted one of the first uploads of the video either got suspended or took their account down. Though, I do think it's worth noting that right now on Twitter there is no shortage of videos of the incident, with Chappelle even being the #1 trending topic in the US this morning. And when you go through the trending topic there, you see Chappelle himself also facing some backlash and criticism, with people saying things like begging the crowd not to boo is pretty fucking pathetic and shows how detached from reality he must be to expect any different. And Dave Chappelle whoring himself out for these uber-rich white men just to be in their presence, literally alienating his audience, trying to force their acceptance of this colonizing right-wing asshole is so gross. I can't believe he's become this over the years. And a ton of people retweeting David Dennis Jr.'s meme of the situation. And as far as Musk, in addition to the 90%, 10% tweet that he put out, he said, the woke mind virus is either defeated or nothing else matters. That could also be in reference to the million other reasons he's in the news right now. But hey, where I'll leave this story is, what are your thoughts on this mess of a situation? Regarding Musk, Chappelle, that audience, any and all thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in those comments. And then, do you have a workplace ick? You know, something your boss, a coworker, or a client does that just makes your skin crawl, or set your teeth on edge. And more importantly, if you have one or several, is it something that you would feel comfortable sharing with the entirety of the internet, including the people you're talking about and or the company that you work for? And the reason I ask is because there was a group of people out there that did. And specifically, it was a group of nurses from a labor and delivery department at a hospital in Georgia that jumped on the ick trend, with them in this video sharing their icks about patients and family members in their department.
My ick is when you come in for your induction talking about, can I take a shower and eat? What? My ick is when you ask me how much the baby weighs, and it's still in your hands. Dad comes outside and asks for a paternity test right outside of our door.
You don't want any pain medicine, no epidural, but you are at an 8 out of 10 pain just to serve a pill, and you're still closed, fingertip.
Well, we've already told you to push a call light. But every 5 minutes, the family member coming at the front desk asking for something else. Another ick, when you're going room to room between one baby mama and your other baby mama. Oh, no. Ick. It's the unlimited trips to the nurse's station for me.
So, as you can imagine, the original video is deleted, but of course the internet is forever, so it's been circulating on TikTok and other platforms. And the comment sections have not been friendly to these nurses, saying things like, my ick is unethical professionals, and my ick is when nurses are heartless during the happiest time of a family's and or woman's life. This is so disheartening. And it appears that Emory Healthcare, who owns the hospital, felt the same way, because they ended up posting a statement online calling the
what they
TikTok
say and what
disrespectful
they
and
do are two
unprofessional, and
different things.
referring to these people by their new job title, former employees. Though it's currently not clear whether they were fired or left on their own accord. But also, I do want to note, it's not just one-sided. We saw a number of people coming to the defense of the nurses, saying, I'm not a nurse, but why aren't they allowed to complain about their job like everyone else does? And these people save lives all day. Of course they're going to have icks. As long as they get the job done right, it shouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
So that's why I want to leave you with 2 questions. 1, which camp do you land in? What's your opinion regarding these nurses? And 2, if you're interested in threatening your job security, what are your biggest workplace icks? Personally, I would advise you not to answer that second question. I don't think it's a good idea to shit where you eat. But since when did any of you beautiful bastards actually take my advice on anything? And then, this may be the worst school district in the United States of America. Or you might think yours is bad, but hear me out first. So for this news, we have to go to the great state of Florida, specifically Brevard County, where the school board just had to hold a special meeting to address an exodus of faculty and staff from the district, with more than 50 teachers and bus drivers reportedly quitting their jobs in the past 2 years, many of them recently, and most because of the same problem, student behavior. And looking into this, you have endless complaints of violence, theft, drug abuse, even sexual activity, and in fact, it got so bad that the county had to expel or suspend at least 7,400 students and arrested 94 during the 2020-21 school school year. And so at the board meeting, you had the staff detailing the horrors they had to endure every day.
On an everyday basis, I'm deflecting, being attacked, scratched, head-butted.
I've been spit on, spit in the face.
Student attacked 3 teachers today. Incident 6. A kid bit her on Friday. The bite mark on her arm is the size of an orange.
At times, we have to call someone to come to our room so that we can go have a little mini breakdown.
And these testimonies go on and on. You got teachers saying the kids have pulled their hair, even gone for their throat. And so as far as what to do about this, some argue that disruptive students should be removed from the classroom. Others even suggesting that parents should attend class with their kids. We also had one idea coming from outside the meeting the week prior, when you had Sheriff Wayne Ivey saying,
they know nothing's going to happen to them. They know they're not going to be given after-school detention. They're not going to be suspended. They're not going to be expelled. Or like in the old day, they're not going to have the cheeks of their ass torn off.
If you're a little snot that's coming to our classes to be disruptive, you might want to find someplace else to go to school, because we're going to be your worst nightmare starting right now.
And so naturally you had that statement hanging over the board meeting, and there you saw people pushing back against the sheriff's approach, saying that more discipline and policing isn't the solution, arguing instead what you really need is better mental health support and classroom management. With the South Brevard, NAACP, and some board members pointing out that students of color and those with disabilities are disproportionately punished. And ultimately the meeting ended with few specific policies, but district leaders were directed to resurrect a committee charged with improving the school discipline plan. And so with this absolute mess, I want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here? And then we had more bad Ticketmaster news, with this latest situation happening in Mexico on Friday, where hundreds of fans were denied entry to one of the last shows of Bad Bunny's tour. As far as what, how, and why, Ticketmaster Mexico released a statement explaining that an unprecedented number of people were sold fake tickets, and saying this caused an unusual overcrowding in the intermittent operation of our system, which generated confusion and complicated entrance to the stadium, with the unfortunate consequence that some legitimate tickets were denied entry, and adding that fans who had legitimate tickets will be refunded. But that's not where the trouble ends for them, because the situation caught the attention of officials in Mexico, this including the attention of Ricardo Sheffield, Mexico's federal consumer attorney, who notably tweeted that his office is requesting a report from Ticketmaster about the ticket access to the concert. And on top of that, the Office of the Federal Prosecutor for the Consumer will require Ticketmaster's reimbursement to include extra compensation worth 20% of the ticket's cost, as well as Sheffield saying the Ticketmaster will have to pay a fine worth 10% of its 2021 earnings. And Sheffield also later arguing on a radio show that the tickets weren't falsified as the company claimed, instead stating that Ticketmaster was the one that actually issued those tickets. Though, as recording, Ticketmaster has not issued any further statement on the situation. But also, this all notably happening after the Taylor Swift Eras Tour controversy. With that dominating headlines in November, you have the U.S. Justice Department now investigating its parent company Live Nation over antitrust concerns. Taylor Swift fans accusing the company of fraud, price fixing, and antitrust violations, and claiming that this intentional deception led to resellers getting the bulk of the tickets. So bad news left and right for them, but really the only way that this is going to change is if they get penalized to an extreme degree. And as of recording, it remains to be seen if that will actually happen. And then I want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's show, Squarespace. Now, I've been partnering with Squarespace for years now, and I have to say, if you're getting your business off the ground, or creating a place to share your homemade goods, your new favorite hobby, your current obsession, or even just to have a personal blog to get all those thoughts out of your head, no matter what you're doing, Squarespace is there to help. And it's all so easy. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. And creating a beautiful website with Squarespace's all-in-one platform has never been so simple. It's extremely intuitive and easy to use. And with their mobile-optimized websites, your content automatically adjusts so it looks great on any device. Plus, with Squarespace, you get access to all their marketing tools and analytics, and their award-winning customer care team via email or live chat 24/7. So if you want to check it out, see why so many others love it, see if it's right for you, start your free trial today over at squarespace.com/Phil. When you realize you love it, make sure you enter an offer code Phil to get 10% off your first purchase. And then, what better way to show off your Christmas cheer than a good old-fashioned fist fight? Christmas in LA, baby. Specifically, this starts Friday evening at Lincoln Park in Los Angeles, because that's where more than 100 parents and children gathered for the tree lighting celebration. You got kids dancing in pink tutus, playing in a snow pit outside, even a DJ playing holiday songs. It's a fun holiday event, at least until this happens. So those are protesters calling for the resignation of City Council member Kevin De Leon. And while he was there in a Santa hat handing out presents to children, if you don't remember, he was also one of the 3 council members, including the council president, who was on a leaked recording that sparked outrage last October for being racist. Or that was when you had one of the people there saying their black colleague handled his son like an accessory and compared the boy to a monkey. And De Leon specifically saying the man handles his son like a Louis Vuitton bag. And while the other participants in that recording have stepped down, De Leon is the only one who's still in office, and there have been protests outside his home for months now. And so on this day, after the protesters show up, they chase him around the auditorium for several minutes, calling him racist. Meanwhile, you have families watching the spectacle, and eventually the protesters corner him in a back room, and what happens next is disputed. What we do know is that De Leon engaged in a physical altercation with an activist by the name of Jason Reedy, and both sides have since claimed that the other battered them. But you can see the pair standing nose to nose in this video, at which point De Leon claims that Reedy thrusted his pelvis into him and then headbutted him. Though it's not clear whether their heads connected, and if so, whether it was intentional. But, I mean, whoever started it, you can see De Leon shove Reedy into a table and push him down a hallway, with Reedy punching him at least once. So what we're seeing in the wake of all of this are very polarized reactions. You have some saying, hey, you can protest, but don't ruin this community event for a low-income neighborhood. But then you've got activists arguing they have to do this because normal channels of public comment and protest haven't produced any results. And as for the other city council members, some condemned the activists, with one even calling the incident terrorism. But at the same time, you had others taking the opportunity to reiterate demands that De Leon step down. Though as of recording this, he has not and continues to refuse to do so. Now, as far as the physical altercation, you have the police investigating, though nobody's been taken into custody right now, so we're gonna have to wait to see what happens there. But actually looking into this is not the first time these two have gotten physical. Right? Reedy's actually been protesting De Leon for months now. Back in March, when he was filming him, the councilman reached to block the camera, allegedly hitting him in the face. And then at another event, Reedy was taping him, and again, De Leon allegedly pushed one activist and grabbed the cell phone from another. So that's where we are. We'll have to see what happens next. But for everyone else outside of LA, I hope this has been a just introduction to the garbage fire that is Los Angeles politics. And then, fentanyl is the leading cause of death for Americans 18 to 49. It's 50 times more potent than heroin, 100 times more than morphine. It was also reportedly responsible for the 2/3 of the over 100,000 drug overdose deaths in America last year. And the number of Americans killed by fentanyl has increased by 94% since 2019. And so while there are a number of questions, one of them is how the hell did we get here? And regarding that, you actually have the Washington Post doing a 7-part investigation into the fentanyl crisis in America. And there they found that multiple U.S. administrations and the organizations beneath them fumbled in their response to the epidemic, with this tragedy beginning as far back as the Bush administration, when you had countless Americans becoming addicted to prescription opioids like oxycodone. And then, in the Obama era, the head of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, the drug czar, was demoted and the role was removed from cabinet, and the government dismantled and defunded drug monitoring programs in the years before the fentanyl surge. And then you had Trump take office, and on the precipice of this epidemic, he promised that his border wall would stop drugs from entering the country. But in actuality, most traffickers were and are bringing it through checkpoints, hiding it in passenger vehicles or commercial trucks. With that then bringing us to the Biden administration, which, yeah, has boosted the public messaging campaign about the dangers of fentanyl and stepped up efforts to scan for the drug at border crossings. But neither he nor his top officials have said much about the staggering amount that is still making its way into the country. And according to the Post investigation, the most reliable gauge of the supply of fentanyl entering the country is the amount seized at the Mexican border. And they found that since July, officials have...
Okay. Alright, that's it for today. Been a while, haven't worked out since last Friday. Bit sick, been under the weather, had a big weekend, blah blah blah. But back into it, should be back on Friday. Got my first strike on YouTube, let's see what happens next. Maybe because I'm playing all these other videos in the background. But it's been mainly whenever I put Joe Rogan on, so we must experiment a little bit more. Anyway, till next time, gonna go make some food. Take care, good luck, stay healthy.